definitely recommend talking with your partner, talking with your family. Just coming up with like a plan, maybe days that you can work on your side hustle. Starting out maybe just a couple hours a month or a week, and kind of compromise on what you will be able to do. And then this way too, you have that time set aside to really focus on it rather than being pulled in all the directions, trying to do all the things at the same time. And that's what I did in the beginning. So don't do that. I did the worst thing first, came back, talked about it, and then did it right.
This show is dedicated to helping you strengthen your family tree and live financially free. Welcome to the Marriage, Kids, and Money podcast, everybody. This is Andy Hill, and today we're talking about side hustling while working a full-time job. According to a Zapier survey, 1 in 3 Americans have a side hustle in 2021, and this number has grown significantly over the recent years. So why is there this growth? What is the attraction to the side hustle? To help us answer these questions and to discuss the benefits of side hustling, I've invited Daniella Flores on the show today. Daniella is a software engineer, a sidepreneur, and the creator of ILikeToDabble.com, an award-winning global platform that helps creatives and LGBTQ plus folks start side hustles and get their financial life and future in order. Daniella is also known as the Side Hustle Queen. She's been featured in major media outlets like Business Insider, MSN, and CNBC. When she's not side hustling and helping others do the same, she loves going on road trips and hiking with her wife. Welcome to the show, Daniella.
Hey, Andy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. You and I have had some chats in the past, and I'm glad to have you on this show. Let's talk about side hustles. How do you define a side hustle?
Ooh, that's a good question. Side hustle's become such a buzzword over the years. A side hustle to me is any kind of any kind of venture that you are doing for income, whether that be on the side of other side hustles or a full-time job.
Yeah, that makes sense. So why do you think there's been such a rise in the popularity of the side hustle? Besides the buzzword, why has there been a rise in the popularity?
There's a huge surge in side hustles, especially over the last year and a half. Before that, we saw it with kind of the same time as the gig economy was really being stood up. We saw companies like Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Rover, the list goes on. They came onto the scene. Silicon Valley, was all, built up, and side hustles became this big thing. But not every side hustle falls under gig apps, and gig apps become very controversial when you get into how they are paid. They kind of driven this kind of growth over the years. But at the same time, the growth on the internet, just with everything and the amount of open source information that we now have for your everyday person to start a business if they want to. We have access to tools that you can actually do this for free. And then the information online to actually start a business yourself. I mean, there is a website to actually go to. I think it's actually supplied by your state government that will help you start your business. And this wasn't around 10 years ago. And you think about one of the biggest social media platforms that's kind of driven a lot of this is Instagram. And Instagram came on the scene back in 2010 was when it first launched, was originally a photo sharing app before they were acquired by Facebook. And then, over the years, Instagram has kind of evolved with a lot of the other social media platforms. Like you have Pinterest, you have Facebook, and now you have TikTok, which is huge. And this has kind of fueled a lot of side hustlers' work online. It's able to connect them to their audience in a way that businesses don't get to connect their audience in that personal way. And you get to have this kind of relationship with the people that you speak to online that wasn't there before. And then leading all up to, the elephant in the room, the past year and a half, and the mass exodus, people leaving, being laid off, or being fired from their jobs, and turning to ways to make money in a more flexible and a way that makes more sense for their life.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, to your point, people are either, we've got the Great Resignation, the different terms that are coming out there, the Great Resignation, the return to the workplace, all these things that are happening right now. People are deciding, is this for them? How does somebody decide, should I just keep doing the side hustling and the gigging versus going back to my full-time job? What are the pros and cons there? How do you weigh that? That's a big decision.
That is a big decision. I think we need to take a step back into the different types of side hustles. So it's kind of like these 4 different types that I like to kind of separate them out into. So you have your gig, which is like your gig apps, like your Uber. Maybe that is also like a part-time job that you take on. Then you have your project-based, which is like maybe a project you're doing online. You're starting a blog, a YouTube, or a podcast. And this is something that you'll make both active and passive income from. It's just something depending on how you set that up. And then you have your small business, which that could be like an actual brand that you start online. That could be your side hustle. And then lastly is like your passive income. Folks, it's really big now to get into the rental real estate market. Starting passive income ventures like that, writing ebooks, creating these things online that they build up over time to, mostly create only passive income, even though they're doing it as a side hustle right now. And that it may change on what their goal is for that, if it is to leave their full-time job or just to have like extra security going forward in the future of their lives, to have that extra, those multiple income streams, because, the future of retirement plans and pensions is always all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about your story a little bit, because I think you've got your feet in both pools right now. You're a full-time worker and you're a side hustler. So tell us about your story and then some of the side hustles you've done.
Oh, right. Yes. So my plate is a little full. Back in 2017, I was going through back-to-back layoffs. I work in tech myself, and at the time I was working in retail IT. I got laid off during the administration change, and then I found a work remote job with the government, actually working with the Veteran Affairs Office. And then I was laid off again. And in that time, I've learned about blogging. I had been really familiar with the idea of blogging with my background in web engineering. I'd actually worked with several startups to build WordPress sites, like full stack, for political candidates, small businesses, you name it. And I never thought about doing it myself for a blog for myself until one day I was just noodling around the idea. I found it on Pinterest. I was like, I'm going to try this out because I love playing around with this stuff anyway. And I just kind of dove into it and see where it would go. I had no idea what I was doing. I did not know what I was going to create. I did not know I Like to Dabble would become what it is today. It wasn't a side hustle blog originally. It was a hobby craft blog or whatever I put on there if I felt like it. And the more I learned about it, I kind of fell in love with it. And I use the word love kind of loosely here, but yeah, it's just kind of this domino effect over the years. The more energy I poured into it and the more relationships I made, and the more I evolved my blog and added more income streams, I was like, I know what I want to do with this now. And that's where I am today.
That's incredible. Yeah. And obviously you've made a lot of connections and the blog has grown, but it's helped you financially as well. Have there been some financial goals you've been able to hit because of these side hustles?
Yes. So my blog is one of my side hustles right now. It's one of my sole side hustles because I've kind of like shed the fat, I guess, from the side hustles I had before. So I didn't really go into too much of my background, but the last 15 years, I've kind of been side hustling on and off since I was a teenager. I've done reselling. I've done pet sitting. I've done fixing and reselling PlayStations online. You name it, I've tried it out in some way, shape, or form. My wife and I also tried Postmates after we moved here. This thing over the years that I used to try all these different things. That's why I Like to Dabble kind of landed on side hustles. It's something I've always been interested in. But now that side hustle has kind of become the main side hustle. Well, I still have my job.
That's great. That's great. So you said your wife does side hustles as well. She did Postmates. Does she also do a million? Has she tried a million other things like you as well?
Yes. Her main side hustle is mostly she flips guitars and other musical instruments and accessories on eBay. Postmates is something we tried out when we got here because I was like, oh, I want to see, like, in the area they were actually looking for some, and where we came from they weren't. And I was like, that's something I've always wanted to try to see if I would enjoy it because I like driving. It's something she wanted to do, but we tried it together because it felt safe that I had someone to try it with. So that's the story on her side hustles.
Cool. I really like this conversation we're having, as well as your site name, I Like to Dabble, because I think the point you're getting to is here you tried a bunch of things and then you got to a point where you're like, all right, this is probably the most lucrative as well as the one I enjoy the most. I'm going to stick with it and shed the others. So if somebody's looking to start their side hustle, let's talk to them about like some steps maybe. So is it to try 100 different things to see what you like? What do you think?
No, please don't go the route I did. I am somebody to go really fast and burn out with everything I do, but that's the kind of nature of my brain. And this is important when we talk about side hustles, how different people are in their styles of learning and working and just moving throughout life. And that's not something I understood when I first started my side hustles. If I knew this, I would not have put myself through so much strife that I did. But the things I tell my clients and folks just trying to start a side hustle are, think about the skills that you have, and then the skills that you actually enjoy, like practicing and doing. So you have your skills that you have from your job. You have your skills like that you use in life too. People will sit and say, I don't know what my skills are, but if you just sit down and write down the things that you think you are good at, that you actually like to do, or just start writing down things that you do every day, or the things that like, let's say you are really good at analyzing movies. That is a skill, and you can use that for a side hustle. So you first write down, all your skills. And if you don't have any skills, if you don't think you have any skills, write down the things that you do, write down the things that you like, and then write down some interesting ideas that you have of stuff that you maybe want to create or want to do. And then write it down. Dump it out, because there are things in the back of your head that you don't know you really want to do them until it kind of comes out in paper or your notes app on your phone, wherever it works. And then you kind of have to go through that list and then crossing stuff out. If it's stuff that immediately gives you kind of like a weird trigger, it's like, no, like maybe a bad trigger from a work memory. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Cross that one out. Only stick to the ones that bring you like a little smile, a little spark, or like a little kind of just wonder of, ooh, what could that be? What could that be? Because there's a connection there. And that's what we call creativity. That's the connection between all these different ideas.
I love it. Yeah. And ones that spark the passion too. I love that. So you mentioned passive income earlier. Let's dive into a little bit more of that, because that sounds like you heard that as a buzzword a lot. It's probably as much as side hustles online. What is passive income when it comes to, I guess, making money and extra money? How do you define that? And then what are some ways to build that passive income?
First, when we talk about passive income, we have to talk about active income. So active income is the time that you spent for a certain amount of pay. And then you have passive income, which is basically pay that isn't being generated from your time, but it's still generated by something of yours, whether that's an asset or a system. I say system also because, passive income, people will argue, well, if you had to do some sort of work, it isn't really passive income. But if you really look at the definition of passive income, you're trading either time again or money. But this time is different. It's more of like a lump sum of time in the beginning. And then once you build it up to become, kind of like a self-sustaining system, you can then hire somebody to help you to maintain it going forward. So it is truly passive in the future. Or, you can do some sort of just minimal kind of maintenance on it to be like a semi-passive. So when we think of passive income, normally that's like the stock market, investments, dividends, because you do put your money into it and then it grows, but there's no work really required on your part. And that's an asset. It generates money for you. But when you think about something like your podcast, my blog, a YouTube channel, those are also assets. And they generate income for us both actively every day and maybe semi-passively every day. But in the future, they can also generate completely passive income for you too, where this is an asset. This is a thing that I could actually sell one day. And I've gotten mine, looked at by a broker for evaluation, and I've known others to do the same. So you could actually do that where you can sell it in the future for, you make money on it every day for whatever amount of time you want to. And in the future, you could also sell it. Or in the future, you could partner with somebody where they maybe take over the operations and you make money off of it every day with ever looking at it.
I love that. And you mentioned real estate as another option. So some of the things that you did some physical side hustles in the past. You mentioned reselling, pet sitting, and your wife does, restringing guitars or fixing up guitars. It seems like you have glommed onto more digital passive income means. Can you talk about the benefits of being in the digital space versus maybe the physical space?
Yeah. So somebody that does not like to go like physically to a place to work anyway, I like to work from wherever I'm at, and being able to do that digitally is such a gift. And it's not something I would have been able to do 10 years ago, like I said before. And that's another thing with the internet and the tools that we have now available to us at the fingertips. Like I can do most of my job on my phone now with my side hustle. And that's insane. As soon as that caught on, like in my head when I was in the beginning and I was doing all these things and I saw all the possibilities that could come from it, I was like, this is something I wish I would have found when I was a lot younger. Like now we see these amazingly talented teenagers on TikTok and they're blowing up. It's like really exciting to me when I talk about it. But yeah, digital side hustles are my favorite, and it's what I recommend to folks that have the access to be able to do them, because they do give more flexibility, to you in your life, and especially if you have a full-time job too.
For me, I get overwhelmed by things sometimes. Like I had a mortgage for a while, and that overwhelmed me. I'm like, I got to get rid of this thing. It was a little bit insane. Like we paid it off in less than 5 years, and I looking back being like, all right, that was a little crazy. But I feel the same way about small business. It's like, I couldn't imagine owning a building or inventory or something like that, where if I don't do well, I have all these things that I got to worry about. That's why I sort of like this digital universe we're in. I don't own a lot of things, and the upside is pretty high. Yes, you got to put in the hours and you got to keep working, but I'm with you. Like, if I could do everything on my phone, that's fantastic. I just bought a new iPhone for YouTube instead of buying a new camera, because I'm like, I just want to do it on my phone. Like, I want to have everything on my phone and just keep things minimal. So for the minimalist out there, who a lot of people I think listen to the show have that sort of mindset, looking at a way to create a side hustle through digital means and creating passive income from it is something that I've enjoyed, and I know Daniella as well. Let's talk about just income streams in general. Do you think the average American, the average person listening to this, who maybe just has a full-time gig, needs to diversify their income streams? Why would you think that, or not? What do you think?
So as somebody who had only one source of income before I had the experience where I logged in one day to my remote full-time job when I worked at the Veteran Affairs Office. And I was told that day that I was let go that day. No PTO, nothing. Like you usually get your PTO payout. That wasn't a part of it. You don't get anything. Like, we're sorry. And I panicked because when I got laid off before, I got a severance because I'd been there for a long time. They just had more structure, I guess, in regards to that. This time I was working with a contractor that was working with the VA, of course. So like it was difficult. It was complicated, and it really set me for like a head spin. And I did not have an emergency fund. I did not have really any savings besides my 401k. I was taking clothes to Plato's Closet at the time. If anybody knows, that's like a resale store for like thrift store kind of things, to just like get gas money. And I wish like back then I'd had something to fall back on. If it were to happen again, I am now, I am fortunately covered. This is why, and especially now, compared back to 2017, I lost my job. I'm not saying the job market was any more stable then, but right now we still have the elephant in the room. I think you need to protect yourself in any way possible. I'm not saying absolutely create another income stream, but if you have, you have your income stream from your full-time job, maybe you have like a 401k or an IRA or something. So those are two income streams right there. Think of just creatively of some little ways that you can maybe add a third one. And that's like, maybe if you want to try pet sitting, or if you're somebody who has teaching experience and teach online with like VIP Kid, or if you have some sort of, like, I see folks in my neighborhood renting out their RVs. And that's a great idea to do too. Like, just some way. So, because right now we have to think about emergencies in a different way. Like, we've never seen what happened to the world or like over the last year and a half before. So what emergencies were before versus now are different, and we have to think about them differently. So not just an emergency fund, but like an emergency plan and maybe emergency income streams.
I love that point. We had, for a while, Nicole and I were like, yeah, 3 months of expenses is pretty good. And then we went through the pandemic. We're like, okay, maybe 6 to 9 months of expenses. And I need to get some more income streams. Yeah, I hear you. And one thing that you brought up, and I know that the laws aren't where they need to be in our country with regard to LGBTQ plus individuals, is having a diversified income stream also a good way to protect people in your community?
Yes, absolutely. Even though it was, federally passed last year that LGBTQ people can't be discriminated, like they now fall under that kind of that Civil Rights Act, that they can't be discriminated against in the workplace. Even though that's in effect, you still can't protect yourself against somebody who is homophobic or transphobic or just doesn't like you for whatever reason, because there are hiring managers, there are HR professionals, there are VPs and CEOs out there that are just not the best people, and we can't regulate that. So, I mean, it's 2021. Homonormativity should be the thing, obviously, but it's not. We can't force the world to evolve in the way that our community would like them to. So we need to do what we've always done, and that's protect each other and ourselves.
Yeah, and for the folks that are out there that are fighting for this type of change or fighting for this type of world we want to live in, speak up when you can to make the change that we want to see in our country and the world. Absolutely. I completely agree with Danielle. Let's talk about where you are today. You said you were in a spot where you were selling some clothes just to make a payment for your gas. How has side hustling and paying attention to your finances helped you where you are today?
That's a good question. So originally when I first started side hustling, it's not like it helped my finances because I didn't have much of a financial education. I did not know about anything. I was just side hustling to basically make up for my own spending habits. That was in the beginning. And that was for a long time. It was the layoffs. The layoffs is what kind of put me in this reality check because finance had always bored me. It always felt like it didn't really matter. I was things are going to happen anyway. Why would I do all this stuff? Like, I need to live now. And then the layoffs happened. I really started thinking deeper about finances. And the more that I actually learned online with my blog, the more I got kind of tapped into the personal finance community. And I just like consumed it like a sponge.
Yeah, if you dive into all of this content and all the creators that are out there, it becomes unboring because it's just a bunch of fun people trying to do cool things and create change in their lives. Somebody's listening and they're like, yeah, you know what? I need the side hustle because I want to protect myself. I want to diversify my income. All these points that Daniella is making make a lot of sense, but I'm afraid of burning out. I'm married like Daniella is, and I work a full-time job, and if I do a side hustle, I'm afraid I'm going to burn myself out. What would you say to that person?
I would say that is a valid fear, and it's real. And I, myself, as a former burnout, I had to go through it to figure out how to make sure it doesn't happen again. Side hustling, you do have to manage your time in a completely different way because you have your full-time job, and then you have the free time that you spend with your family, and you have other obligations, and you have a life. And that's the time that you're actually taking to do your side hustle. So it becomes really difficult to figure out how do I do this? So I definitely recommend talking with your partner, talking with your family, and coming up, especially if you have children, so just coming up with like a plan, maybe days that you can work on your side hustle. So maybe starting out, maybe just a couple hours a month or a week, and kind of compromise on what you will be able to do. And then this way too, you have that time set aside to really focus on it rather than kind of like, being pulled in all the directions, trying to do all the things at the same time. And that's what I did in the beginning. So don't do that. I did the worst thing first, came back, talked about it, and then did it right.
Yeah, I've done that in the past too. It's great advice. I remember getting so excited about all this stuff that we've been talking about today that I think I came up to Nicole one day when she was a stay-at-home mom, and we had kids 4 and 2 maybe, and I'm like, hey, you know how I'm gone all the time during the week and I travel for my job? I want to do this podcast, and I'm thinking maybe I'll do it like on the weekends. So if you guys could just like go somewhere else while I'm recording, that'd be great. And you know how that went over? It did not go over well. She was like, are you kidding me? You're gone all the time already, and you want to start something else? So over time, I figured out, as you're describing, taking, hey man, if I'm able to get an hour in this month for my side hustle, that's fantastic. And what ways can I expand that over time where I am not compromising my enjoyment with my spouse and my kids, but also, trying to make some financial progress or pursue a passion that I'm really excited about. So this is fantastic advice. Let's talk to the person who's been listening to us for a little while and they're like, all right, I'm in. I want to get started. What's one piece of advice we could leave with them to start right after this interview for starting a side hustle?
Oh, okay. So if you want to start a side hustle and you're ready to start, but you're not sure exactly what, I would definitely recommend to start with the brainstorming exercise and then go online and start watching some of your favorite creators online, watching them, reading their stuff, and just kind of seeing some of the ways that they do things. And if they share some of the behind the scenes stuff, like absorb it as much as possible. And remember some of the keywords that they say about the things that they do or about the tools that they use and write them down, because you'll know exactly what to search for online when you're doing your research.
I think that's great. There's so much free information out there. It's bonkers. You mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this is a different universe we're living in. There's so much free information out there. It's almost like it's calling you to do this. So I understand you also have a quiz that helps people kind of figure out their perfect side hustle. Can you tell us where people can access that?
Absolutely. If you go to iliketodabble.com, there'll be a call to action square. It's like the first thing you see, and it'll just say, take the free side hustle quiz. It is a 4-question, maybe 2-second long quiz, and it'll kind of point you on the right path of what type of side hustle to start. So those 4 types that we talked about earlier, that kind of what it goes into, and then it will point you to completely free resources like articles online to kind of dive into some of those subjects.
I love it. She's got a great site, and if you guys follow her on social media, she's a lot of fun. She's got a lot of great things going on there. Daniella, thank you so much for your time today. If people want to connect with you just outside of the quiz, should they go to iliketodabble.com? Is that the best place?
They can go to iliketodabble.com, or you can follow me anywhere online as I Like to Dabble.
Excellent. I would highly suggest following her on social media, everybody. I have a lot of fun following her. Daniella, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.